Welcome back. Here we are in the kitchen at Frost Middle School where we normally do our demos. And today I have two guest chefs with me. Over on my left, they're giggling incessantly, is Miss Ruchty, who teaches 7th grade math. And on my right is Mr. Barrett, our 7th grade assistant principal. These two volunteered to come in and help me do a demo, which is normally what I would have students do during class. But since they're authorized to be there, I asked them to come in. All right, so these two, Mr. Barrett, you cannot throw an egg in the classroom. That is kitchen safety and sanitation hazards, and that could cause salmonella to go all over the kitchen, and somebody could die. Mr. Barrett said, somebody could die? I said, well, food poisoning. Some people have died from food poisoning, but I'm just joking around. Nobody's going to die from a little bit of egg on the counter or on the floor, but I didn't want him to waste my ingredients. So Miss Ruchty put the ingredients back, and unfortunately, you guys, the video camera that I was using didn't have sound working, and I didn't know this until the night before I wanted to show you this, and I started editing. So I asked these two, what was the first thing we're supposed to do in the kitchen before we start cooking? We need to wash our hands. So Mr. Barrett, you go to the back kitchen sink, and Ms. Ruchty, you use the front kitchen sink. I'm checking for soap because it had been 6 months since we had all been in the building. We are really having a great time. I wish you could have heard some of the jokes that were going on behind us. I can't remember what they were because this was on Monday. But these two are horsing around, and apparently I'm giving you some very serious instruction while they're washing their hands, and then Mr. Barrett decides to fake sneeze on the back of my neck by flicking water at me and making an achoo sound. He's very funny. He's very funny. When you guys come back to Frost, you are going to absolutely love him. He's a lot of fun, and so is Miss Ruchty. So now I'm going to wash my hands since we're all cooking together. And when we get done and I rinse off my hands, I am going to ask you guys what I should dry my hands off with. And then I notice that Mr. Barrett is using a paper towel. Why? Because dish towels are for dishes and paper towels are for drying off our hands. All right, today's demo, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Snickerdoodles. Mr. Barrett was very impressed with the apron that Ms. Ruchty brought for him. It was really nice. And I love the fact that he wore a Prince t-shirt for this demonstration. They both know I love purple, so they both wore purple. That's pretty cool. So right now they're checking for ingredients. We're reading over the recipe. Ms. Ruchty is calling out the ingredients, and Mr. Barrett is checking to make sure we have everything. So far, he's checked for the shortening, and he's checked for the margarine. He's checked for the sugar, and now he's checking for the eggs, which he was throwing earlier. The next ingredient that he's checking for is flour, and then baking soda, and then cream of tartar in these little containers. And I'll tell you what cream of tartar does in a little bit. The next ingredient is salt. We need to make sure we have salt. And the next ingredient is going to be, there's the baking soda. It's going to be some vanilla. And then finally, we're going to look for some cinnamon because we need cinnamon and sugar for these cookies to be rolled into prior to baking. So we're going to get started on this, and we're going to get the mixer out and start creaming together the shortening and the margarine. So Mr. Barrett is showing us two different types of shortening right now. And if you have the canister kind, you would then have to spoon it into a dry measuring cup and level it off, as Ms. Ruchty is about to demonstrate. But fortunately, we actually have sticks. She's going to quickly demonstrate that. She's too funny. And these sticks are like butter. They have lines on them that tell you exactly how much is in there, and you can just cut it right on the line with a serrated knife. So I have gotten out our heavy-duty mixer. And normally in the kitchen, when you all are here, we use a hand mixer. Now I had to skip over parts of this because I was giving you special instructions on, how to cut out the shortening and then add in the margarine. And we found out the one mixer that we were using, the hand mixer, didn't work. So then I had to go get this one out. So Miss Ruckty is transferring over some eggs that she already mixed in, the 2 eggs, and she's adding in the butter and the shortening. And she's got a pretty strong arm. She was stirring that and getting it really smooth when normally you need a mixer for that. Okay, so she's getting that all in there. And while she's doing that, Mr. Barrett is sifting flour. Remember in the last demo, I measured out flour for the pumpkin muffins. And I measured it and put it in the sifter, and he is doing that now. So he's sifting all of the dry ingredients, the flour, the salt, the baking soda, and the cream of tartar. The cream of tartar, ladies and gentlemen, is a leavening agent. And I know I told you before that baking soda is also a leavening agent. So is baking powder, and so is yeast. So what is a leavening agent? A leavening agent is something that causes cookies and baked goods, maybe a quick bread, to rise. We're using cream of tartar, which is one of the ingredients in baking powder, because we want to give these Snickerdoodles a light, fluffy center. We're using the baking powder, which is a base, to react with an acid in the, you're not going to believe this, an acid in the recipe, which is actually sugar. Sugar is considered an acid. So when they react, the baking soda gives it that crispness. So when you make things like chocolate chip cookies or any other type of cookie, you're using baking soda to give it a crisp texture. When you're using baking powder in quick breads, you're using the quick bread for like pumpkin breads or maybe banana breads or zucchini breads. That is giving you a lighter, fluffier texture, okay? And with Mr. Barrett was just shoving flour off onto the floor. It was crazy. He was being such a messy cook. But sometimes messy cooks are the best. So wait till you see his cookies that came out. They came out absolutely perfect. But as I was saying, the cream of tartar is going to give it a little fluff. Baking powder has cream of tartar in it and some other ingredients, and you use those in breads. Because these cookies are not a bread, but they have a chewy texture, we want to use the cream of tartar. That does not mean if you put cream of tartar in your chocolate chip cookies that they're going to be chewy, okay? It's not going to happen. So they are now going to slowly add in the flour mixture into the creamed mixture. So the recipe calls for a couple of tablespoons of sugar and some teaspoons of cinnamon. But actually, what I just told Mr. Brett and why Ms. Ruckty is so excited is I just told him to triple it because I want to make sure this recipe yields about 48 cookies. We wanted to make sure that we didn't run out of cinnamon sugar mixture. And that's what we're going to roll the cookie balls in. Okay, so he's putting together the cinnamon and the sugar. And she's going to come over. She's going to dance over. She's so silly. She's so much fun. If you have her for math, you're going to have the best year ever. She's a blast. So we're going to triple it. Okay. So we're talking about tablespoons and teaspoons and conversions here. Remember, there are 3 teaspoons in 1 tablespoon. All right. And Mr. Barrett's got that cinnamon sugar mixture going, and Miss Ruckty is going to finish up mixing in that flour. And then the next thing you know, we're going to have some video where they're actually talking, because that's where it started to work. So one thing I thought was really important to mention here, because the mixer is kind of tricky, but you always want to make sure when you're adding dry ingredients that you turn it on to a very low setting, or you're going to have all your flour poof out of the mixer. So make sure you have it on a low setting until it's just combined, and then you won't have these issues. So Ms. Ruckty and Mr. Barrett both were given scoops to make sure that all of the cookies were the same size. So they scooped them up. They were double checking to make sure they were the same size. And if you look, there's the mirror that you get to look into when you're sitting in front of the demo counter. So right now what they're doing is they're scooping up little balls of dough and they're rolling them in the cinnamon sugar mixture. And I told them to make sure that they keep them about 2 inches apart which is not very much, about 2 inches apart on the cookie sheet so that they do not run into each other. And you don't have to push these down to flatten them, boys and girls. You can just keep them into little balls and roll them, and they will flatten on their own as they bake. Okay? So they're going to go ahead and load up the tray, and they should wind up with about 16 on these cookie trays because they're pretty big. The parchment paper that's there, that is, if you have parchment paper, it helps to prevent the bottoms of your cookies burning if you put them on a cookie sheet. I don't know if you've ever made cookies before where the bottom was really dark, but the top was not, and it was like golden brown. To prevent burning underneath, just put down a little sheet of parchment paper. It's 1 use per sheet. So once you're done with them, you've gone through the oven with one batch, then you need to throw it away. But you can actually take the parchment paper, it will slide all of those cookies off right onto your cooling rack, which is amazing because then you can use those cookie sheets again almost immediately. All right, so they're just making their cookies. Mr. Barrett was giving Miss Ruchty a little hard time because her cookies were not exactly evenly spaced. So then she went back and did them again.
I promised them they could take the cookies home.
I actually don't think it's possible to eat just one of these at a time.
No, I agree.
I've never tried. There's no point in trying. I don't know. What do you think? Should I do 3 or
Looks good.
That's gonna go rogue. Oh, thank you.
It's okay. Looks good.
I'm gonna go a little like this, but I guess I'm not gonna come out.
All right. When their cookies are all formed.
Wait a second. I washed my hands when I came back from the bathroom.
I licked mine.
That's probably fine.
So when we get these all on the cookie tray, we're going to put them in the oven. And how long does our recipe say, Ms. Ruchty, that we have to bake them for?
8 to 10 minutes in a 375.
8 to 10 minutes. So we're going to go on the low end, and we're going to bake them and see how they come out.
Yay! Ah.
So when we do our baking at home, and my wife has a really special cookie recipe she always makes, we always go on the lower end so they don't burn and they stay a little softer and chewier.
Yes, and oven temperatures differ from oven to oven. So that's what you want to do is you want to check them on the low end, and if they're not quite done, you can leave them in a little bit longer. That's why there's a range of time.
Now, Miss Hanson, you check these. Do you put a toothpick in them?
I do not. I look to make sure that they are golden brown and that they are set in the center.
What does set in the center mean?
It means it's not jiggling.
I see.
That always confuses me because I feel like when I take them out, it looks like they're not quite done with them.
Right. If they have a little wiggle or a little jiggle, or even if they look wet in the center, you definitely want to give them just a little bit more time. Not a whole lot of time. Anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, and check them again.
Yeah, or sometimes we'll cut the oven so the residual heat, as it's called, does the rest of the cooking for you.
Well, you must have a certification in cooking also.
I have so many certificates. I'm a parent, and I'm constantly feeding kids that don't appreciate my cooking.
I don't know how they couldn't appreciate your cooking.
I appreciate that we're going to eat these and they're going to be delicious. So thank you for all of your knowledge.
Absolutely.
And sharing.
And so you are putting these on baking sheets with a piece of paper on them. Do you know what that paper is called?
Me or them?
Either one of you.
Was this parchment paper?
It is parchment paper. Do you know what the purpose of parchment paper is? I'm going to be really impressed.
Put on parchment.
So that it doesn't stick.
So, well, it's easier for cleanup, but there's another reason.
No.
Well, you can't use wax paper because wax paper melts in the oven.
Right.
That wasn't a thing overseas, and when we first moved here, I made pizza, and I had one of these, and I didn't realize I bought wax paper.
Do you know how far 2 inches apart are, Miss Ruchty? Okay, I'm just...
Mine are closer together and bigger.
Right, so
mine are going to go in the oven a little longer.
So
and then they're just going to
definitely-
be one mess, and I'm going to run away with a huge mess.
I mean, you snort a
Pay
lot.
attention to Mr. Barrett's cooking, not mine. It's fine. I'm not sorry.
So parchment paper actually prevents burning. If you've ever baked cookies on a cookie sheet and the bottom side was burned, but the top side was light brown, That's why you use parchment paper. It also makes it really easy for cleanup.
Yeah.
I love transferring the cookies when they're on the parchment paper right to my cooling rack, and I just slide them right off the pan, and I'll demonstrate that when these come out of the oven.
Yeah, I mean, Miss Hanson, we have a little bit of batter left in here.
That's why I'm moving
We've
so
done our
slowly.
16.
That's okay. We're going to have to do another set. We're going to have to probably do 2 more. We don't have to do those on camera. This is just for demonstration. Very nice.
Do it like splat one again. Sure.
All right, let's put them in the
Yeah,
oven.
let's get it on camera. Can I do it on yours?
Let's
I don't
get
think
some
Miss Hanson
oven
wants our
mitts.
kids to see
No,
that.
I would not want them to see that.
Do I wash my
They
hands
might
again?
want to see that. Yeah, go ahead and wash your hands again.
Okay, I made one.
Are we running the dishwasher or are we going to start washing it off?
No, we're going to run the dishwasher.
Oh,
I was balled up cleaning everything and running the dishwasher.
I haven't even shown them how to wash dishes yet. I told them to. I haven't shown them how to. All right, so we're going to put these in the oven.
Are you using this enough that I should get more soap put in your pan?
Yes, probably that would be a good idea. All right. So when you put things in the oven, guys, make sure you have your oven mitts on. That oven is 375 degrees in there. And we're going to put this tray in the oven. Mr. Barrett?
Is the camera on?
Yes, it is.
So when I was asking the questions about the soap that was on camera,
Yeah.
you didn't think that maybe,
Well, I didn't know you were going to ask that.
fair enough. And I'll be a good model.
So when we open up the oven, and you want to open it for me?
I would love
Okay,
to.
we're going to open up the oven and let the heat escape.
Now,
Mr. Barrett keeps his eyebrows, and he's going to gently.
am I even on the camera over there?
No, you're not. That's okay. I'll move it.
It's sort of like
Here, so
smiling.
we're gonna
even
model
though-
this again.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you can see Ms. Recti only.
Smiling.
There we go. Okay, you guys are on camera now. So go ahead and let the heat escape, and put it in the center of the center rack.
Oh, so we're only putting one right now?
Just one, yeah, because the oven's kind of small.
It was kind of small.
All right, and we're going to put the timer on. Timer button is going to be up on the microwave section.
Up in the microwave section, A, B, C, D.
Timer,
Is that cool?
kitchen timer, press that. Press clear from the top oven because somebody used the microwave, I think.
Fine. Okay.
Okay.
Fine. And then I can just hit it. Do I do it on the top?
All
or
right,
on the bottom?
Mrs. Hanson's going to go take care of that, and then we're going to see them when they come out of the oven. All right, guys. This is the final product. Whose batch is this?
This is Mr. Barrett's batch. As
So-
you can see, every cookie, with the exception of that guy, is almost near symmetrical.
He did do a very nice job. Ms. Recti left, and hers are in the oven right now. But I will tell you, they puff up, and they look like they're going to be like like a sand dollar, like a mountain. But when you take them out and they start to cool, they start to flatten a little bit, okay? And these were in the oven about... These were in the oven about, I want to say, 9 minutes total. All right, we're going to taste test them in just a few minutes. Okay, guys, here is the rest of the recipe. These are Ms. Recti's, and, oh, Mr. Barrett did that last one again. Very nice job. So, Mr. Barrett tasted one, he had to go, Ms. Recti had to go, but they both said they were absolutely delicious. Crispy on the outside, light and fluffy on the inside, very cinnamony, tastes like cinnamon French toast. Hope you guys enjoy them.